Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, December 19th, 2022. Monday, Waycott Meeting Room, Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. Broadcast live on the local cable channel 18. Stream live on the Town of Mashpee website. I'd like to convene the meeting, and I believe it is about 6:31. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd actually ask for a moment of silence, and if you don't mind, maybe a special in honor of late Dr. Brian L. House, who most of you probably have known. He just did amazing things for this town, and for any other wishes you may have. Thank you. Thank you. And I believe we have no public comment, correct? All right, thank you. Can I see have an approval for, a motion for approval of Monday, November 21st, 2022, regular session, and Monday, December 5th, 2022, regular and executive sessions?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, the public hearing, Tom? So we have a public hearing, presentation and review of the options for road safety for improvements on Old Barnstable Road between Breezy Acres and Mashpee Falmouth Town Line.
I'm not the right one, John.
Yeah, you want to read it? The Mashpee Select Board was scheduled for a public hearing on Monday, December 19th at 6:30 PM to review the options of road safety improvements on Old Barnstable Road between Breezy Acres, Mashpee Falmouth Town Line. The proposed improvements include accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as alterations to the road's geometry. Conceptual plans will be presented at the hearing. Said plans will also be available at the Mashpee Town Hall in the Town Manager's office and at the Mashpee DPW for viewing prior to the hearing. Public input is encouraged and may be offered at the hearing or by emailing boardofselectmen@mashpeemass.gov. And
Yeah, I would just like to start by saying, we had a meeting, the DPW director and I, along with Vice Chair of the tribe, Carlton Hendricks, and along with some other folks, and it was a very productive meeting, and we had a couple by Zoom, and tonight I'm pleased to say that they are here in person for the purposes of presenting this to the Select Board, and I'd like Vice Chair Hendricks to maybe make an introduction, if that would be okay.
Good evening, everybody. How's
Evening,
everybody
Mr.
doing?
Hendricks.
Good. Carlton Hendricks, Vice Chairman of the tribe. We contracted with this QK4, these gentlemen here for the road safety purpose of roads in Mashpee for safety purposes. So the tribe contracted with these gentlemen. We did a study on road safety around Mashpee. We had the studies passed back in 2018. Whether it was COVID, change of trend, administrations, for whatever purpose, the plan sat idle for quite some time. I'm happy that the town manager, along with Catherine, got back on it, and we're back on track. So these two plans that will be described to you tonight. Hopefully that we can have a vote and input on one of these plans, and then the tribe can go and apply for funds to actually implement a design and implement the project itself. So I'd like to, this is just another version of a collaboration between the tribe and the town, and I'm just looking for whatever input and looking for a Prosper to keep moving forward with it. So with that, I'll just pass it over to Matt. Thank you.
Right?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Riddell with QK4, and I really want to, extend my gratitude for allowing us to come share here tonight. I always love coming to this part of the country, so it's a real treat for me. Tonight, we're basically going to be talking about the Old Barnstable Road Safety Project, and we'll go through some of the timelines in a little bit and some of the specifics, but really, the thrust of it is to improve the safety along Old Barnstable Road, not only for vehicles, but even more importantly is pedestrians. One of the things that COVID taught us is that people like getting out and about more. Yes, sir.
Talking to my people
Okay. Is this better?
If you, can you take it right off? Oh, that's good.
How's this work?
That's much better.
Perfect.
Okay. So one of the things that COVID taught us is that folks like to be getting out and about more, and we see a lot of more pedestrians and bicyclists getting out in our communities and things like that. And so with that increased traffic, that, provides for an increased conflict between vehicles and pedestrians. So we want to try to, make some accommodations for that as well. Just a little quick background. Back in 2016, the road safety audit was performed on Old Barnstable Road. With the Transportation Safety Bill that was passed in 2015, the FAST Act, Federal Highways put in a huge thrust of money into the U.S. with regards to safety projects throughout the country. One of the things that, we've been focusing on as a country in regards to our transportation system is trying to improve the infrastructure that we have rather than trying to just keep building new infrastructure all the time. So a lot of money has been put into big safety projects, and they had a separate set of funds that tribes were allotted for. So in order to qualify for funds of this magnitude, because it is a pretty significant size project, a roadway safety audit was to be performed, and a lot of different agencies were a part of that. You had the tribe was there, Catherine was there for the town of Mashpee. You had Federal Highways there. You had the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I think there's a couple other agencies as well. So after that road safety audit was completed, the tribe applied for, click the button. There we go. The tribe received the grant to do the design portion, which is kind of what our function is for a safer Old Barnstable Road. And then in 2019, we were awarded to do the contract. And I think several different firms tried to apply for this. It was done through a fairly open process. And so we began work. In 2020, we presented some draft plans to the town and the tribe with a couple different options as far as schemes that we could go after. Now, none of these are going to be set in stone. They're primarily there to look at as talking points and things like that. As I explained to everyone back in 2020, the final result may not be option 1 or option 2. It might be a hybrid. You might have option 1 through this section or option 2 through that section. Or, everyone could decide, let's go option 2 all the way, things like that. So nothing here that I'm going to show you tonight is set in stone. It's all to kind of generate conversation, ideas, perspectives, things like that. And so that's what brings us here today, December 2022. Just a quick overview of the project location. As it was mentioned earlier, the project begins at the town line and then traverses along Old Barnstable Road up to the high school at Highway 151. Some of the existing concerns. If you notice in these pictures here, and you can see that consistently as you drive down the road, you've got trees and power poles that are in the clear zone. For a 30-mile-an-hour facility, a clear zone's probably going to be, you're probably going to want at least 7 to 10 feet of clear recovery area for any vehicle. So this creates an instant hazard because, you know, as somebody who back in 2005, somebody pushed me off the road with their vehicle and I hit a power pole at 25 miles an hour. And I was pretty lucky to come out of that one unscathed. I can't imagine hitting one at 30 miles an hour. So obviously, we want to try to find some separation there. But also you have some sight distance concerns where some of the vertical curves are not designed for a 30-mile-an-hour facility. So you can either reduce the speed limit or make some slight alterations in the vertical curves. And I think with this project, we ended up deciding to make some slight alterations in the vertical curve because it actually ended up helping our property impacts as a result. Excuse me. So let's talk about some of the key features of the project. 30-mile design speed throughout, which is what it is posted now. 11% max grade, and what that means, that's the vertical rate of change along the roadway. But I think the maximum we had to go with this one was somewhere between 8 or 9%, so we're in pretty good shape there. That 200-foot stopping sight distance, you know, that's played a pretty key role because that's the stopping sight distance that you need as far as seeing an object that's at least 2 foot high. You want to have at least 200 feet to be able to stop before that object, whether it be something in the road, whether it be a pedestrian, whether it be a car bumper, things like that. And then obviously we wanted to be able to accommodate cyclists and pedestrians. You know, Old Barnstable Road is a pretty big cyclist thoroughfare. It's on the register as such. And like I said, you got a lot more pedestrians. You have activities that are going on in the school. You have activities going on the fair site. So in that traffic, that pedestrian traffic and bicycle traffic is just going to increase as we go through the years. So let's look at the main difference between the two options. Option 1 maintains the current roadway width for the vehicles of 2 11-foot lanes, and then what we've done is added a 4-foot bike lane on either side with a granite curb. And then on the right side of the road, so if you were traveling towards the high school, towards 151 on the right, you'd have a 5-foot concrete sidewalk. Now, this is obviously going to be our most condensed option and our lowest impact option, but it does still keep the pedestrians fairly close to the roadway. You know, you only have them 5 foot off the roadway with the separation of the bike lane, but you do have the curb there as some protection. And then option 2 is what we call our, you know, probably our most safe option, but it does have the wider footprint. We've got 11-foot travel lanes, same as before. We've got 5-foot bike lanes with the Cape Cod berm on the outside of that. And then on the back side of the Cape Cod berm on the right, where we're going to have our multi-use path, we have a 4-foot grass buffer in there. And that grass buffer doesn't need to be consistent throughout. So if there are trees and things like that that people want to preserve, you know, that trail can be wound in through there. You know, it doesn't have to follow a straight line along with the road. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, it's the kind of stuff we see all over the Cape. Some of the key features, you can see here, if you can see that faint yellow line, that's the current center line of the road in this location. And then that thick red line in the middle is kind of where the center of the road is going to be shifted. So this kind of gives an example of some of the areas where we were trying to make not only geometric improvements, but also we wanted to kind of shift the road left or right in certain spots in order to lessen impacts on folks' front yards. You know, we definitely want to be cognizant of that in anything we do. And as I mentioned earlier, if you see that note in the bottom right-hand corner, the improved clear zone for fewer injuries and less damage in roadside departures. So when folks are thinking of their front yard, you not only have to think about, safety of pedestrians, safety of vehicles, but also safety of things on their property. So if you have a curve in there that could be flattened out like this one here, it might lessen the chance of a roadside departure. Whenever we go into these safety projects, the first thing we do is we look at the crash data. What events have happened. And obviously there was a very tragic event along this road several years ago. But while we're in there, we don't just look at those specific spots. We want to look at the whole road, because the goal is always to try to keep that future tragedy from happening before it does. We don't want to have it happen first and then react with a fix. We want to try to identify any concerns that we see from the beginning. So the next the next slide I'm going to show you is kind of a video. It's kind of a drive-through of our rendered version of option 1, and then we'll go on into option 2. I probably won't play the whole thing because it's kind of long, but at least it'll kind of give you an idea of what it might feel like to drive this road. So you can see we've got the bike lane, the 4-foot bike lane on the left and right, and then you have the concrete sidewalk there on the right as well.
So this is option 1,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir, it is. And pay no attention to what the houses look like. Those aren't, if you see your house on there and you wondering why it's not a correct representation, it just means I just picked a random house and stuck it on there where I saw a house on the mapping. And you can see from the dark green that's kind of on the outside of the sidewalk and to the left side of the curb, that kind of shows what the disturbed limits would be on the project. So it can kind of give you a feel for, what kind of property impacts it would have. One of the things we tried to do is, while we may need some construction easements and things like that, is to not have any, significant adverse impacts on folks' front yards and things like that, or, if they had, particular nice features in their driveways, things like that. We wanted to try to minimize any of those impacts.
Can I ask you a question while I'm looking at this?
Yes, sir.
Now, you have a bicycle path on the right-hand side, along with a pedestrian path on both sides, left and right?
So we have a bicycle path on the left and right. One for each direction, because bicyclists are supposed to ride in the direction of travel.
Right.
And then the pedestrian is just on the right.
Just on the right?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Okay.
Obviously, if folks wanted to, it could be added on both sides. But again, we were trying to minimize our impacts in here as much as possible and still provide the safety of folks to go as pedestrians if they wanted to. Because right now we've got folks walking along the side of the road.
Safety is what brings up my question. So is there a crosswalk that allows people to get across there? I mean, it's a fairly long road.
Yes,
I
sir.
would have to think that there would have to be multiple areas that would allow for a crosswalk.
Absolutely.
And is there a light there, or are people just wait for traffic to stop to let them go?
You could go through the process of an additional stop sign or something like that. But what we try to do is look at what the sight distance is at those points. So we want to give people at least 6 to 10 seconds between when you see a car and when that car would get to you. So we try to identify those, kind of selection spots as we go through there as the most desirable places to have crosswalks.
So it won't be right after a bend? In the road,
Correct.
correct, okay.
Correct. Or we might put it on the apex of a curve where you can see, good distance in either direction. But as he mentioned, those could have some significant links just because of the fact that, this is a pretty windy road. So,
Right. And that's my concern. I mean, there's an awful lot of foot traffic there as well.
absolutely. But, again, I'm trying to produce something that's going to be attainable to everyone that folk can rally behind, and that's to try to minimize the footprint. But, if if the consensus of the town and the community says, hey, we are safety all the way, let's get walkways on both sides, we can absolutely do that.
And I would just remind the board that it was a tragedy on that road, in that area,
Oh, yeah.
that triggered us wanting to do something to enhance safety. I forget how long ago. Kevin, do you remember how many years ago that was? That was a long time ago. So, anyway, sorry.
Oh,
Actually, I have a, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
I have a quick question. So you've talked about how wide the sidewalk is and the bike path is. How wide, and I know it varies, but how wide is the green strip, which you call the disturbed area,
so
more or less?
for this option two, so that option
Yeah.
that you looked up right now, it was, there was no green strip there. It was.
Oh, okay, I
It was
misunderstood.
right up next to the curb. The second option, it's going to have a typical width of 4 feet.
Thank you.
But now, that could vary.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we see the video for option 2?
Yes, sir, that's my next slide.
Perfect.
Are you all ready for me to jump to that? So you see here, we have a little bit wider bike path, and then you can see the separated asphalt path. You know, this has obviously some aesthetic appeal because you have the grass strip, and also the path can be asphalt instead of sidewalk through there. So, you know, for a lot of folks who don't want their street to look like a, you know, quote, downtown city street, I know that this could have some appeal as well.
You're right, it does look like a highway, not so much a side street.
Yes, sir. And obviously, you know, there's a lot of features that we can throw in. For example, you just saw that guardrail there, you know, we can go with, you know, some wooden guardrail or something like that that can kind of help blend in with the environment so it doesn't pop out as much to you. So,
I like that for safety itself. It's a deterrent if you have a 6x6 pressure-treated fence walking down the side.
absolutely.
Right.
But those are going to be placed on the outside of the sidewalk, correct?
Yes, sir.
So they're really not going to be protecting the sidewalk, people on the sidewalk
Correct.
necessarily, so.
There is no barrier. You know, it is that pathway is outside of the quote clear zone, the clear recovery area, you know. Could you have a separator? Yes, but, you know, it would, again, you're talking about increasing costs and things like that, and, you know,
So basically, option 2 is about 4 feet wider,
yes,
correct?
I'm going to
Because it
show
would have the
you
buffer?
in the next couple slides, you'll be able to kind of see a comparison
Okay.
between the two.
Is there any, as far as with the curb? So I can visualize the appearance may look better without the curb,
Yes, sir.
but I'm wondering about, isn't the curb, with the curb, a little more safe for pedestrians? I'm just thinking someone's curving off the road, you're gonna hit grass, and then you're gonna hit the sidewalk. You're gonna
Right.
hit a curb, you gotta really try hard to go up and over the curb.
You know, you could go with the option of having a curb with the 4-foot strip
Okay?
if you wanted to go that route.
I just know, I'm also thinking it's an
Right.
incredibly narrow road.
It
That-
is.
I mean, but I'm thinking curb for
And now-
safety wise, but
Correct. And-
just
but-
my opinion.
No, absolutely. But, and also with us adding the bike paths in there, that's going to kind of widen things out as well. So really, you're talking about adding 8 to 10 feet on the standard width just in itself. So I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between these next two slides just to kind of give you a feel for what the impact differences are. And we're kind of taken at the exact location. So here's option one. You can kind of see the typical section of, you've got the pathway and you've got the bike lanes and the adjacent sidewalk. And then at the same location to see how that footprint expands. And I'll kind of flip back and forth between them. So you can just kind of get a feel for it. Does that make sense to everyone? Any specific questions on that?
No, I think it's pretty clear.
So that, they're like 3650 on the top there. If you look at the right side on option one, and then I want you to look at the difference when I go to option two. Now that looks like a significant difference. It looks like wow, that's a 10-foot difference. But when you consider that it's a cut section, it's not going to make that much of a difference to the property owner. And then if you look at on the bottom portion in the fill sections, for one, that's a much less difference. And in the other sense, in most of our big fill sections like this, it's where there's a culvert in and it's kind of a forested area. And you're not seeing this situation happen a lot in front of folks' front yards. As far as potential impacts, we've got quite a few parcels here. We've got 29 parcels on the left side of the road, 29 parcels on the right side of the road. We've got 28 different driveways that we're going to have to negotiate and tie in, excuse me. We've got a pretty significant water line going down the road. And then the kind of real big unknown is what the financial impacts are going to be with regard to the 40 utility poles. So there's up to 40 utility poles that could be affected. And I understand, where I do work all over the country, and in most cases, the utility companies, because they're using your right-of-way, are required to move the poles. If they want to do something inside your property, they have to move the poles because it's inside your property. It's my understanding that's not the current agreement here, and that you all have to pay them to move the poles. If the town decides to go forward with this project and, we get some good federal highway grant funding money and things like that, maybe it's something that you could strike a deal with the power company. I don't know. I'm not the town attorney, and I'm not going to play one on TV. But it's just a thought that, because what I understand that they have been charging in the past seems pretty significant and not something that I've heard of before.
He was educated on this when we had our meeting.
I was shocked to say the least.
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment.
I couldn't get out of here without bringing it up.
That's okay.
Traffic considerations, the result is they really didn't play much of a consideration at all. If you look at the 2016 ADT when the project was first started versus the projected 2036 ADT, they're both well within the range for a two-lane facility of this type. So, there was never a consideration given to widening or needing to add turn lanes or anything like that. Everything fell well within the level of service that we look for. Any other general questions?
I just want to mention to the board that I really appreciated the opportunity to collaborate on this. Obviously, we were seeking some funds through the tribe, and it was a good meeting that we had, and I appreciate the fact that we were able to address enhancing safety and then bring to the board a couple of options. You did receive, obviously, option 1 and option 2, but there could potentially be a modified version of that if the board so chose. And I don't know if the DPW director wants to add anything.
Good evening.
Catherine?
So as the town manager just mentioned, and I think Matt had mentioned, we did have a meeting several weeks ago to look at these options. I guess my only comments would be, as you look at these options and look at the safety improvements, which I think we all support, just recognize, what we have for existing conditions and, what's proposed right now. You have, as Matt mentioned, 2 11-foot wide travel lanes within a 40-foot layout. Both of these options are going to have significant right-of-way impacts. Option 2 more so than option 1, because what's proposed for improvements is actually wider than our existing right-of-way. So you're talking about permanent easements as well as temporary construction easements, which will add cost to the project, as well as the utility impacts that Matt had mentioned. I had reached out to Mass DOT just to confirm. It is different in Massachusetts. But yes, the towns are responsible. We're going through it right now with our Route 151 project. Utility costs are almost $2 million on that project. What they told me, the rule of thumb is to use a $20,000 per utility pole number. So you're looking at almost $1 million in just utility pole costs. I'm not sure what the water and other utility impacts might be that are underground. So just, I think, a lot of things to think about in terms of what improvement. As I mentioned, I think we're all very supportive of making accommodations for pedestrian, bicycle. I think it's just, what do we want that to look at, and what are the impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, and what's the constructability of the project. Some of the improvements, may just end up putting the price tag, out of reach for the town and the tribe to move forward. So I guess I would just caution about that.
One of the things that I had mentioned on our meeting, and thank you, Catherine, is that there's a lot of safety grants out there right now. And one that there is available this year, and under the current transportation bill, it has the option of being there for the next 5 years. That doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be there for the next 5 years. But just like the federal safety fund grant that the tribe got these funds from, it had that option in 2016, and it's still going strong now. But it's called the Safe Streets for All grant. And that's intended for larger projects such like this. And typically, they don't want an application under $5 million. And I think this year's threshold was $5 million to $30 million. So that could significantly pay for this project. Here's the catch, is that 20% of the funds would have to come from non-federal funds, meaning the tribe could not pay for 20% of that. So, if it was $1 million project, and it's going to be a lot more than $1 million, but I'm just giving you examples, then the town would have to come up or find $200,000 of non-federal funds. So, but that, that's a lot of money out there that could fund a project that typically, towns like Mashpee wouldn't be able to afford to do because of the price tag. Just something to think about. And one of my questions is for you all is, what do we need to do to proceed forward? This project has obviously been hanging around a long time. It's, those safety concerns aren't going away. I want to see this happen as much as I do. What are our next steps for you all? Like, what do you want to see from us next? Do you want us to take an option and try to proceed it forward? Do we want to wait on, comments you get from others watching online or on TV and amongst yourselves and try to address some of those? How would you like for us to proceed?
We're in a public hearing, so I don't know if anybody's
We're gonna-
here
Yeah,
to
I
make
think-
any comments.
Does anyone in the public like to?
Hi, Lynn Barbie, Surf Drive. I have a family member who lives off this road, and I travel it a lot. And years ago, I was a very avid bicyclist. I really hope we do the wider bicycle lanes. I think that's really important because there's not much wiggle room. I mean, there are a lot of curves on this road. And the wider lanes will make it safer. I would also hope that maybe there could be some way to put, like those little raised things you put in the center line that have lights along the edge of the bicycle lane, so when somebody's weaving in their car into the lane, they'd notice it. I know in some countries they put much larger, sort of little, not barriers, but something that in the asphalt to make sure that drivers know that they're going into the bicycle lane, because it's very easy to do. And it's not only is it a very windy road, it's also can be a very dark road. So I would hope that there might be some way to have some kind of lighting, particularly at certain areas like curbs and stuff, because if we encourage people to do bicycles and to walk, we should take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Those are all excellent points. Just to kind of let you know, standard, what we typically do is we have the raised reflectors, as you mentioned, so we'll have the yellow reflectors down the center, and then we'll have the white ones that go in between the two bike strips. But also what we will have is rumble strips going through there as well. What we don't want to do is put some of those big, larger raised things that you mentioned, because the last thing I want somebody to do is whose bicycle wheel kind of goes off path, and then it causes them to wreck it right in front of a car, and then we've created a hazard where we're trying to eliminate some. Does that make sense, ma'am?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else would like to speak? Catherine?
My only comment on the rumble strips is this is a residential neighborhood. I would be just concerned about noise with the rumble strips. So I think, I appreciate the comment. I think we want to look at options for that so that we're not creating a noise issue for the abutters.
We are, so typically on the bike lanes, and obviously this is something that we, would be a community decision, is we stagger those out. So it's like, you have a 12-foot rumble strip, then you have a 48-foot gap. So it's not continuous rumble. And that really only creates the noise if the driver isn't driving in their lane. But yes, we'll look at any options that you absolutely want to.
I just have an additional comment. I mean, I think the way, like Katuitt Road, what was done at Katuitt Road, I think that was well done.
Which road, sir?
Katuitt Road.
Okay.
So, I mean, because that was the same situation, no sidewalks. Now it's, I believe, Catherine, it's only sidewalk on one side, correct? But it has the curb. I used to drive home from Boston every night, and I would dread driving down Katuitt Road because there was always someone, everyone in, dark clothes and walking or driving their bike, but there was no sidewalk, there was no nothing. So, I do question, do you have to have it on both sides of the road? I mean, I'd rather have it, incredibly safe and maybe a couple feet further, but and then have the curb on the one side, so at least you have a very, very safe path, to travel on that road, but again, that's just an opinion. And I still believe the curb is safer than just having, a 4-foot, grassy area that someone could just drive right up and over without any consequence.
Right.
And if you drive down Katuitt Road, even at night, the way it's marked, and I don't think they've added any lights, but somehow the road is, you can see clear as day driving down that road. So,
Just so I understand you clearly, because I want to make sure I get your comment correctly. When you say, could it be done on one side, are you suggesting the bike lane only on one side, or are you saying at least put the curb on the side of the pedestrians?
yeah, I mean, I don't know what, safety, I know they're supposed to, if you're driving a
Right.
bike, it's supposed to be on one side of the road, but
Correct.
if it could be done safely, all on one side, or, I'm not really sure exactly, but,
The only way to do that legally, as far as I know, is to eliminate the bike lanes and make that 5-foot path a 10-foot, an 8 to 10-foot multi-use path.
well, so because if you did something like that, which I believe is somewhat like a Katuitt Road, it seems to me like a wide sidewalk,
Correct.
but you can ride your bike, and I've done it a bunch of times with the kids.
Right.
You can, you go up and down, along the sidewalk, but at least you're behind the curb. So, and that's the other thing is, bicyclists they're going like this left and right. You're driving along, you still swerve you stay, to try to stay away from those bikes. If it was done all on one side, behind the curb, and if you had one lane or one sidewalk or sidewalk bike path combined on one side of the road, rather than having 4 feet, why don't can we just do 8 feet on one side? And I don't know, just a thought.
And that is exactly what, there's a project for one of my clients in South Carolina right now, and that's exactly what we did, was we took a 2-lane road like this, and we put an 8 to 10-foot wide separated multi-use path for bicyclists and pedestrians both to share.
Yeah, I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
I do believe
Yes.
that this needs to move forward as swiftly as possible, but, if we're gonna do it, we should try to, get a lot of opinions and, and do it right. I'd be curious to see what, Catherine's thought on that, because she has a lot of experience with all that.
If I may, Matt, what I'll probably do is put in perspective. So you brought up Katuitt Road. So Katuitt Road, you have your 11-foot travel lanes for vehicles. You have just a 1-foot shoulder, but you have a separate 5-foot sidewalk.
Correct.
So that is a road that does not have bike lanes on the road. It has a small shoulder, but it has the separate 5-foot sidewalk, which is at locations, it is separated by a curb. Other locations, we do have the separation, which is, I think, what Matt had talked about is, it may not be a consistent curb necessarily along the entire length. It may vary where you either have the right-of-way, or if you have a tree or something else that you need to make an adjustment. Route 130, those are wider travel lanes, but that is a situation where you have, a 10-foot multi-use path on one side. So again, just with probably a 2-foot shoulder. So a little bit wider road lane with a wider shoulder and a separate multi-use path that's 10 feet wide. Red Brook Road, which we just recently repaved, that's an 11-foot lane with 2 4-foot bike lanes on either side. So I guess just to try to give you some perspective on the different scenarios in roads in Mashpee. I don't think at this point we don't have anything that would, I guess, give you a perspective for option 2. Our Route 151 project that we're designing will have the 12-foot vehicle lanes, 5-foot shoulders on each side, and then the multi-use path and sidewalk. So, I mean, that's your 100-foot layout where you have a lot more traffic in pedestrian and bicycle accommodation. So that, I think, is your most accommodating for bikes and pedestrians and vehicles. But you're looking at average daily traffic of, 25,000 vehicles per day. So, 10 times as many as this road. So I don't know if that helps kind of give you some local examples of the different.
What's your thought on like the sidewalk on both sides?
So what we had actually talked about was, I think what you almost were referring to is at the last meeting, just because of the right-of-way limitations and trying to minimize impacts on the neighbors, was to just do a multi-use path on one side. So you'd have bike pedestrian accommodation together and then separate from the travel lanes, but just the 10-foot multi-use path rather than the 2 4 or 5-foot bike lanes plus another 5-foot sidewalk.
Correct, that's exactly.
So a little bit narrower, which I think the other, and I'm sure Matt can speak to this as well, I guess the fear whenever you widen a paved surface, even though it is striped, is that tends to increase the speeds, the vehicle speeds, because the perception is that they have more room to move. So even though it's still an 11-foot lane, when you have an additional 4-foot shoulder, that could cause speeds to actually increase on a road because they feel like they have more room to
But not if you have the curb. like
Not
we
if you
talked
have the
about.
curb, correct. Yes.
So, like you said, the one-sided pedestrian multi-use with curbs is what basically I'm suggesting.
Right. I think, or have the option of a curb and/or a separation depending on the circumstance.
Yeah, you have to, I get that. I mean, I bike down Couture Road many times, and there are spaces where, and then sometimes there's the rails, and you have to do what you have to do. I
Right.
get that.
Yeah.
That saves you, yeah, what Catherine was mentioning would save you about 3 feet in width.
Right,
So-
and that's-
So it does save you some, absolutely.
And I see, I think, my personal opinion is not having, the walkways on both sides of the road and adding the curb, keeping pedestrians all on one side, I think it's safety, safety, safety. Just my opinion.
Just have one follow-up. Can you refresh my memory regarding where the majority of the poles are, on which side?
It unfortunately it alternates because of the curves in the road. It switches back and forth. So unfortunately, they're not all on a single side. It goes back and forth,
Be nice if we were on the side where
Right.
there's less poles.
right?
And we could try to come up with an alignment that weaved in and out of the poles, because, that could prove to be a lower cost than the right-of-way acquisition. But then again, if right-of-way acquisition becomes an unattainable object because people are just saying no, then maybe the poles get paid for out of the $5 to $30 million of grant money that we can apply for as well. So that's why the poles don't put as much fear in me as maybe a traditional project would, where the tribe and the town were trying to save funds for a couple of years in order to be able to do it. I think this puts us in a little bit different boat if those grant funds are still there.
I think I like your ideas better. I do like the idea of the one trail on one side, and maybe a higher curve just to keep any vehicles from.
Right. That's one of the things that we talked about in the beginning, and again, this is your all's road, so we're going to do what you all want to do. The only thought of putting in the bike lanes is because it was on a, national bike trail system, and I can't remember the name of the system off the top of my head, but it was part of some sort of national bike trail system that this was considered a significant route. So that's the reason why. But yes, absolutely, we can, do like a 10-foot multi-use path, with some curb separation.
Yeah, and to me, safety is most important. I mean,
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Chair, I know we don't have a full board tonight, but can we just get some consensus from the board in terms of how you want us to proceed?
Did you want to say anything before that, before we?
I'm thinking what everybody else has mentioned with regard to the multi-use. I'm also thinking there's less impact on the neighbors in that way, if we're saving those 3 feet. It seems safest, and as I said, it seems to bring the least impact. So I'm not sure how we move forward.
And Tom just did it, so I think that, the consensus would be the one-sided, 8 to 10, I mean, whether we can get away with 8, I guess it all depends on, parameters of the road and whole thing, but plus the curb, if we can do it all, but do it all on one side. And I understand it might have to switch a couple times, but it is, actually, I think 130, I think the switches as well. So if that would be, I think that's the consensus of the board, correct?
To have maybe a drawing of that and look at that, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well, I think that's what they kind of want some
Right.
feedback, come back from us.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else has a public
Lynn,
comment.
would you like to come back one more time?
I think, Lynn Barbie, Surf Drive, I think one side is fine. However, most of the houses and most of the roads going on to Old Barnstable are on the high school side of the road. In which case, you're taking more frontage from properties if you're on, I would call it the east side, but the high school side. Having where this drawing is, there's houses on the other side, but if you go up the road a little bit more, you have a whole lot of other roads going on to Old Barnstable and houses that actually front Old Barnstable. So I would say you wouldn't want to have the wider, you'd be taking a lot more people's property if you do it on what I would call the high school side of the road as opposed to the other side of the road. But I don't know if that works. I drive down this road all the time and I'm always concerned about people, dogs, bicycles, all that. But if you don't want to take a lot of property, you'd have to do it on the other side of the road, and I don't know if that's the best way to do it. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
So,
I
ma'am,
hope we do something, though.
if you can, I don't know.
But you did mention earlier that you'd be shifting the center of road.
Correct, that's exactly
Yeah,
what I
we
was
seen
getting ready
that
to say.
earlier. Yeah, I
Yes.
get that.
So even if we did go to the one side, we could still balance out the impacts by shifting the whole road to the left, if we're widening out. Just so I'm clear on this kind of consensus option we seem to be moving towards, do we still want to look at, some areas of having that grass strip in between the what's now the curb, and now our 8 to 10 foot multi-use path?
I think it would be worth
Yeah,
seeing
I
that.
think in some cases, like a Tuart Road, you have to do it that way.
Right.
So I get that in some places you can't do a curb, so it's going to be a little bit of a mix, I guess,
Correct.
correct? So you got to do, again, my preference is the curb because safety-wise.
Right, and we might actually, with that strip, be able to avoid some power poles, because we can shift the trail around the back of the pole,
Yeah.
or a significant tree or something like that.
So if,
Yeah, I know we got a lot left on the agenda, so I would recommend that the board close the public hearing unless there's somebody else.
Got one back.
Oh, there is one.
back.
come on up.
Hi, I'm Andy B. I actually live on the road. I have quite a few things. I'm not going to bring them all up now. I need to digest a lot of what's been said tonight, especially in terms of distances, but I have a few comments.
Could
And
you just pull that a little bit closer to you? Thank you, sir.
sure, a few comments, and they're probably going to back up a lot of what other people have said already. One concern is when you are going to straighten the road, it is going to make people drive a little bit faster. It's a very narrow road as it is, and people drive too fast. You start straightening the road, it's going to increase that impact. And if my maths, if I understood what you were saying, so we have like an 11-foot road, and it's roughly going to be doubled.
No,
Near enough with all of the buffers on either side.
no, sir. So what you have now is about a 22-foot wide road. And what we're talking about as far as, what I'm calling kind of our consensus option is actually keeping it at 22 feet. Because we aren't going to be having the bike lanes adjacent to the travel lane now.
Okay.
And just real quick to address your comment on the straightening out of the road, we were talking about some minor adjustments where there might be a small reverse curve that forces somebody to steer left and then immediately steer right. We're just talking about eliminating some of those. We're not talking about an overall straightening of Old Barnstable Road.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand that.
It's just making some very slight alterations here and there to, again, make it safer.
Okay. And addressing the bicycle lanes, I kind of agree with what John said. And there's also evidence, if you go further down Old Barnstable Road over the town line into Falmouth, they had a project very similar to this a few years ago, and they just put a granite curbstone with a sidewalk, and that was it on the one side, and there's no biking. But this is a 1 mile stretch of road, so if you had biking there, they're going to get to the town line, and now you're back to Old Barnstable Road with no bike lanes. So you've enabled biking for a 1 mile period. I don't know where people go after that or how people get there in the first place. I think without a multi-town plan for bike lanes like you're talking about, I'm not sure it makes sense. And there are other instances like Catuit Road that have this granite curbstone. That to me sounds like a lot of sense. Which side of the road you put it on, I understand there's problems. Some sections of the road seem more sensible to have it on at some parts of the road and then switching, but then when you switch, I'm guessing then you're going to need to put walkways across the road.
When you switch, you're going to be forcing people to cross the road.
Exactly.
Well, right now, only some people have to cross the road. Now you're forcing everybody to cross the road when you switch back and forth.
Right, so I guess my point is maybe that's not desirable.
It is absolutely not
Because then
desirable.
you're probably going to need to put signs up, stop traffic,
Yeah, I mean,
So I think, I think it would be good to see an option that John recommended, something like that.
And I think that's what we're moving towards. I still think it's a good idea to have a wider multi-use path that could both accommodate bikes and pedestrians, because now we're throwing a curb on there, which is another obstruction for bikes. And so we're kind of condensing things. And if we do that on a major bike trail, whether it gets used or not, it's still, labeled. Again, I'm not an attorney. I don't try to play one, but I don't know what kind of legal liability that could present for the town, which is always something I try to steer clear of. Is, let's put an extra 3 feet on there and make this a legal situation.
Okay, again, I just refer to Old Barnstable Road down in Falmouth and
Yes,
how
sir.
they have it set up.
Okay.
Take a look at that too.
We'll absolutely take a look at that.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is that it? Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
First and second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So we have our census, we just,
Yeah, as long as there's a consensus, I think what we'll do is convene another meeting soon, and we'll have some findings from that based on your input and based on what's been said here this evening, and then we'll revisit the select board with a more formality. Tonight, we wanted to just introduce the options and see if you wanted this modified, so I think we're good for now.
So at
Yes.
this, I'm sorry. At this next meeting, are you wanting us to present, kind of this newer, like option 3 as a single option now?
Yeah, I'll speak to the vice chair, and
Okay.
then we'll arrange something. We won't make you come in person. It'll be Zoom.
I come up here all the time, so it's,
It'll be a Zoom meeting.
So just as, what I feel is, I would like to know what your opinion is of this conversation we've had tonight. You don't have to tell me now. If you put it in writing, or just let us know if you think this is a good idea, or it's not a bad idea, we can move forward. I'd like to know that we're not changing your plan too drastically. But I like John's position on it. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's definitely a viable option. I would lean more towards the 10 feet rather than the 8, only because you're having bicyclists go in both directions. So a multi-use path works great at 8 feet if you have bicycles going in one direction, but when you have bicycles going in two directions, a lot of times you want to have both ways. I'll do some facts research and, try to come at it with some, recommended federal highways guidelines rather than what I'm trying to come up with right now off the top of my head. I'll have some of that information for you that I can reference you some text and some formal guidance, if that's what you prefer.
We can leave that in the hands of the experts,
Right. Perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
Thank you all.
All right. All right, so we have a discussion and approval of the Seventh Amendment to Memorandum of Understanding between the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe and the Town of Mashpee, Massachusetts, for the provisions of fire protection and emergency medical services and law enforcement mutual aid assistance. And we have the Memorandum of Understanding in front of us.
And I can give you a briefing if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So essentially, we have this MOA for the purposes of police and fire assistance and services rendered. We did feel that there was specific language that needed to be tightened up. I know Chief Fry and Chief Carline had discussed some specific language. Long story short, this language that you see was drafted by our legal counsel, Pat Costello. It was forwarded to the tribe, and I spoke to Vice Chair Henricks, and it was voted on, and it was approved. And now I just need your authorization to sign off on this, and I strongly recommend that you give me that approval, because this is language that was specifically needed in case of certain circumstances. And I don't want to get into all the specifics, but basically, we would only be responding to Chief Fire or his designee, but for the purposes of assistance under certain circumstances, this is highly recommended.
And as far as Mashpee's medical services, law enforcement, and mutual aid assistance wise, all of our department heads are
We're-
in agreement with the MOU?
Yes.
Okay, that's the most important thing to me, so.
Yep, the fire chief who's sitting here was, no, the police chief was, and, because the police chief has been asking me about it.
Okay. Does any member of the board
That's,
have any questions
So I just
beyond
need
that?
I need a vote from the board to authorize me to sign off on this.
No, I think it's very clear. If our council has drafted the language, the tribe has signed off, certainly I would move that we
yeah.
authorize.
I'm all for
Can I
it.
have a motion to move forward to have the town manager provide
Execute.
authorization and
Yes.
execute the memorandum of understanding with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe?
Second.
All right, first.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Yes.
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 I'll
I thought
reach out
made
to you
the
tomorrow.
motion, John.
I can't.
Oh, it's-
You gotta do the so moved, remember? All right. So discussion and approval of the amendment to the Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station intermunicipal agreement, IMA, for the Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station, UCTRS. And Catherine's back up.
Hello again.
Busy night for you.
So as you may recall, I was before the board back in November about this matter. After further conversation and in light of the decision of the town of Bourne to effectively withdraw from the IMA, town council thought it prudent that we take two new votes on this. The first to amend the current intermunicipal agreement, which is set to expire at the end of this month, removing Bourne as a member, and then a second motion to extend the IMA to June 30th, 2026, with just the 3 remaining member towns. So there is a motion that was prepared, or 2 motions that were prepared by town council. And just to let you know, all of the other member towns have already acted on the first motion. So the town of Bourne did vote to amend, as did the towns of Sandwich and Falmouth. And then the 2 remaining towns, Falmouth and Sandwich, did vote to extend as well. So we're the last town that is now acting.
And what about the second motion? Did they, so you said that they approved already the first motion, but what about the second motion?
And voted on the second one as well.
Oh, okay.
So Falmouth and Sandwich.
And our neighbors have inquired as to what the status is, and I did advise my colleagues that you would be voting on it tonight.
Okay. Unless the board has any questions, can I have a motion to move that the board approve an amendment to the intermunicipal agreement among the towns of Falmouth, Sandwich, Mashpee, and Bourne for the maintenance and operation of the Regional Municipal Services Facility at the Joint Base Cape Cod, dated July 1st, 2018, for the purpose of affecting the town of Bourne's withdrawal from the intermunicipal agreement prior to December 31st, 2022 agreement termination date.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes, unanimous. Further, can I have a motion to approve, further move that the board vote to pursue pursuant to Article, what is that?
14.
11?
14.
14. 14 of the amendment intermunicipal agreement among the towns of Falmouth, Sandwich, and Mashpee to extend the term said intermunicipal agreement to June 30th, 2026 upon the mutual agreement of said towns.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Yes.
Kayla?
Thank
And
you.
aye.
Thank you.
And if I may, I'll leave copies for signature.
Thank you, Catherine. Discussion and approval of short-term financing agreement for the wastewater project. Treasurer, tax collector, Craig Mann. You have the floor.
Good evening, thank you. Craig Mann, Tax Collector Treasurer. So I put a memo together to the town manager that I believe is in your packet. Basically, back in October, we received the short-term financing from the SRF, and it was for 2 years, and it also included a schedule for the long-term financing. And long-term financing, as I went over the project or the paperwork that I've actually included in your packet as well, for the 54 million, just under $54 million. I noticed that it was at 2.4%. I made a phone call to Nate Keenan from SRF and expressed my displeasure with the fact that they were charging us 2.4% for 30 years. Basically, we have to go through a whole bunch of red tape to get the 0%. And I've discussed that with Ray Jack, the town consultant engineer, along with, he's discussed it with GHD. It has to get approved from the Mass Department of Housing, the bylaws that we passed, and that has to be approved, then sent to DEP. DEP has to approve it. All these things are in process, from what my understanding is, and it looks like it's not going to be a problem, but it hasn't been stamped and signed, and Ts haven't been crossed and the Is haven't been dotted in that respect. So with that being said, what I'm looking to do is ask the board to give the town manager and myself authorization to sign. It looks like it's coming down the pike. It has in the past with the towns of Orleans, and I believe it was Truro, who have gotten SRF funding. It's just, it takes time. And really the last thing I want to do is I want to get the SRF 0% short-term financing in place, and that's going to take 2 months after we sign the documents. I've been going back and forth with SRF, and Ray Jack has been going back and forth with Mass DEP, walking them through all the necessary documentation. But I didn't want the town manager to sign without you being aware of what we're signing for. That was one of the biggest things.
And I've been saying no, and I get, what, 3 emails a day?
Fortunately, you get them and I don't.
3 or 4 a day.
Okay.
So yeah, they're
And
hot
I've been
to,
refusing to sign.
yeah, they're hot to trot, which is, I'm not against signing it, but I don't want to, I don't want to commit to something that without you knowing. And also, I think it's going to come through. I have no question that it really isn't, but we haven't gotten the sealed delivery yet. I've gotten verbal notification that, yeah, it's coming through. Yeah, it's going to be 0% long-term.
I've been verbally told the same, and I know there's concern about what it says, but I think it's more of a deadline right now, and I don't know when it's gonna surface where it says 0, and
Yeah, and the other side of it is I want to make sure that we don't run into a cash crunch either. The short term is definitely 0. It's going to take 2 years before they even go to a bond. And the DEP, from what I understand verbally, I've been told in the next 2 months it's going through the DEP and it should be sealed. And then in a month or 2 after that, we should get the notification. And from what I've talked with other towns, it does happen. It's just frustrating that they couldn't do it right then and there and at the get-go. Which Nate Keenan said to me, yeah, I understand your frustration, Craig. So.
Okay, does the board have any other questions? If not,
I have some questions.
okay.
So part of it is making sure I understand. So we're set with the short-term loan. That's
Correct.
listed here at 0%.
Correct.
But for the long-term loan, that's supposed to be 0%, you're asking us to authorize to sign a document at 2.4%.
Well, when I sign the documentation, or when we sign the documentation,
Yep.
for the 0, it's also, the schedule on there has the long-term as well. So
Okay.
it's, it would be both at the same time.
It's one document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, we're waiting for DEP to say some sort of letter from DEP. And this is the first time I've gone through SRF.
Yeah.
Some sort of letter from them saying, okay, yes, you're approved at 0% because of your nitrogen 0 bylaw and, and all of that. We're waiting on that.
I can imagine it's going to be frustrating, and I know you're
Oh,
doing, I know both of you are doing everything you can. What is the deadline?
They're really, the deadline for,
For signing this document?
they
Before
have
we-
not given me one, but I know when I sign it, or when we sign it, it's going to take 2 months for the money to start to flow.
Okay.
And considering the project has just started about a month ago, I don't want to get into a position where I'm waiting until March or April to sign a document, and then, okay, it's 2 months after that, we're at the end of the fiscal year. Am I going to run into problems with free cash being hit because I'm not getting reimbursed for something that we've already expended money on? So that's why, I kind of waited 2 months
Sounds like
trying
a
to
choice.
push DEP and push SRF.
Yep.
And I'm kind of at the point where I better get the ball rolling, because if I don't, and you know, SRF's comment to me was, where are you going to get a better rate than 2.4%, which I gave a snide comment back, but he is right. But at the same time, I said, that's not the way this was sold to the public.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think it's more of a deadline in terms of process and the concern about the after effects.
Can you explain more, if you know, what happened with Orleans and Truro? Did they sign at 2.4%?
Yes, they did. And yeah, I spoke to the Orleans treasurer last Thursday, actually, and he said, yeah, it's a pain in the neck, Craig, but they did come through at the 0% for the long term, and we signed beforehand. It's just frustrating.
I can imagine it would be, and I can hear your frustration, and I empathize with the frustration. I'm also concerned that, as we all know, and I know we're all concerned, that residents believed, and as you did and I did, that it was going to be 0%. So
We all believe that.
Exactly. I understand that. One thing I'm wondering is, since we only have 3 people on the board, of a full board, if there would be a harm in waiting until the full board convened.
No problem. I mean, that's 2 weeks. That's no problem.
That wouldn't cause an additional
No, it's-
burden?
No, that's,
The 9th.
3 weeks, that's fine, whatever. I mean, I don't, yeah, that's fine with me. I don't think that's a problem. He's going to be getting 3 emails a day for 3 weeks, but
Yeah, you okay with putting it off? I mean,
Yeah, that's 3 weeks, yeah.
it's 3 weeks as far as, you know,
as far as, yeah, that's not
I
gonna-
understand the red tape is what it is, so you have to,
Yeah, that's
I
fine with
think
me.
what he's saying is that with this, if you signed it, it just doesn't delay it on the other end.
Right.
Because you could have your 2 months after this signature, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, if we wait 3 weeks, that's fine with me, and then, you know, okay, if the board says, yeah, go ahead and sign it, you know, okay, we're talking 2 months from there, well, that's fine. We're still within the fiscal year.
all right. I'm good with it. At the same time, I'm looking at it, if it ends up being 2.4%, it is what it is, because it's not like we're gonna get it from anywhere else. So, they
Yeah.
kind of have us, you know, we don't have a choice, but it's a big number, and having a full board, I think, is a good, I think it's a good decision.
And it also gives us, it just gives us a little bit more, it gives us a little more time.
Yeah.
Because, 2.4% of that much money, it's, 54 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, you're talking 19 million. Yeah, I mean, there would be debt forgiveness and all of that, but still, it's, I do think it's going to come through. I really do. I don't think we're going to have a problem,
Yeah.
but I certainly asked the town manager, I said, I don't want to move forward without the board knowing what we're signing.
So you're asking the board tonight to vote in
We're not-
approval?
We're not.
You're going to wait.
We're gonna
Excuse me,
table
what?
it.
You're going to, Selectman Colombo asked us if we could just wait for the full board to make that,
A full board.
We're gonna table to the next meeting, Tom.
so, okay.
And I don't want to jeopardize losing any opportunity at 0%.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, although I defer to the treasurer, but.
Yeah, that's, we haven't lost the funding.
And, in terms of the emails, because it's that woman that I've discussed with you, yeah, okay, so she's going to continue to send me 3 emails a day, and I'll just say, I can't sign. Sorry. And if she complains to you folks, then you'll understand why.
All right.
Okay,
Okay, so
thank you. I'll see you in
Thank
3
you.
weeks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig.
I know that we don't need a vote to table, just carry it to the next meeting.
Just carry it to the next
All
meeting.
right. Next, discussion and certification of hiring process for police public safety dispatcher Shannon Lee.
Yes, I can attest to the fact that, consistent with the chief's memo, all of the town's policies and procedures were adhered to. He has articulated the process itself, and just request that the board certify the process for the purposes of the appointment.
All right, can I have a motion to certify the process
Second.
first?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Discussion and approval of new ambulance billing rates. Chief Phelan.
Good evening.
Thanks for your patience.
No, no problem. I approached the town manager maybe a couple of weeks ago. I had conducted an evaluation of our current ambulance billing rates as compared to the rest of the departments on Cape Cod. The impetus for that was I was getting some ambulance replacement quotes, and the ambulance costs have gone up dramatically by $100,000. And so we tend to draw the money out of the ambulance revolving account to pay for those ambulances. So I wanted to look at the rates and see if we were actually in the middle, so to speak. So after looking at the rates, we were about $300 below the median Cape-wide. So I approached the town manager and said that I'd like to raise the rates $300 based on ALS and BLS, if that was okay.
And it's recommended, strongly recommended. And we usually recoup these costs from insurance companies.
Yeah, we did speak with the town finance director, and with the abatements factored in, we have a 97% recovery rate from our ambulance billing, so that's quite good.
Yes, I should point that out. Thank you, Chief. I didn't realize our recovery rate was that high. I was educated myself at that particular meeting. I would have thought it was a little lower than that, so 97 is really high, really good, in my view.
Yes.
I mean, we only got 3% to go before our 100.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, if not, can I have a motion to approve the new ambulance billing rates?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Good holiday.
Thank you.
You too.
You too.
Discussion and approval of track bogs conservation restriction.
You're getting all the department heads and assistant department heads
I know,
tonight.
they're all here.
How's it going?
How are you?
Very good. So I'm here tonight to get signatures for the conservation restriction for Chop Chake Bog. It's on the east side of Santuit Pond. It's Old Cranberry Bogs. It's 14 and a half acres, 14.6 to be exact, and they were acquired by CPA funding for the purpose of public passive recreation as well as just education. And we have gotten funding, an in lieu program through the state, Fish and Wildlife, to have the bog turned back into a wetland, which is quite the process since there is a lot of sand on top of all the peat, which is pretty much the heart and soul of any wetland is peat layers. So that's what it is tonight, yeah.
Okay.
So where's this parcel exactly?
This is on the east side of Santuit Pond. It is right south of Cranberry Lane. It is, and we also, with the acquisition, we got 14 Cranberry Lane, so we have access to the actual parcel from the road there. So,
This is the acquisition we did, what, a couple
Yeah,
years ago?
I
Yeah,
lose track of time, but I
Right.
think that's about right.
Time flies, having fun.
yeah, it was about 2
By
or
the
3
way,
years ago.
Time flies when you're having
welcome
fun.
welcome to the new position.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really enjoying it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's hard to figure, you know, not recently, probably 6 months ago, I ran into one of the department heads of the Cape Cod Commission. And she thought that they were going to abandon a lot of the bogs as wetlands because they said they were basically the man-made wetlands. And the bogs are doing nothing but making it faster for the pollutants to get through the the bog as it exists today and right into the river, especially Mashpee River in particular.
Yeah.
And she mentioned that to me, and she said that they were gonna go, she was thinking that's the way they were gonna go, was abandon the man-made bogs and turn them back into useful land.
Yeah, that's absolutely what's happening. The town of Mashpee just successfully did it at Childs River. That bog was reverted back to a wetland. It just completed it last year in 2021, and it is a very good success story for that.
Yeah.
It really is. And the best part of this whole thing is that none of the material is taken out and delivered somewhere else or taken off-site. Everything is used on-site. All the sand will be reused for berming, for retention, and for remediation of all the chemicals and stuff that were used throughout the years of the bog.
Yeah, so they are still pursuing the possibility of getting rid of the bogs as they exist today and turning them back into useful parcels of land.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Phil. I'm glad I asked that question because it was put out probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and never heard anything since then, so. Thanks, I'm all for that.
Excellent.
Any other
Motion?
questions?
No, I think it looks good. Looks great.
Yeah, can I have a motion to approve the Chop Shake Bogs conservation
moved.
restrictions?
So moved.
Restriction?
Yeah,
Second.
All in favor?
yes.
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 We'll get that signed.
We'll have to sign those afterwards, I believe.
Yeah.
The one and only Ashley Fisher.
Good evening. And Tom, I think you might have been referring to the southern bogs on Santuit Pond.
The what?
The southern bogs on Santuit Pond.
Yes.
Yes, so the southern bogs are certified wetlands, the
Yeah.
ones that you're talking about. The Chop Chack is the recently abandoned that can be converted back to a wetland. The ones that have already become certified as a wetland can no longer be restored.
I forget what it was, but it was, one of the, it was my question was the property at the end of Amos Landing Road. And they said they thought that that was something that was just ineffective. And because, and I know the area all too well, and it's, the catch basin diverts everything right to the bog, directly to the bog. Open shot. It's a corrugated pipe that's open to, and not a good place for anything to sit. You know, it sits there, it's a tidal pond, a stream, river, Mashpee River is a tidal pool. And so if the water's only moving, half of the time it's going out, half of the time it's coming back in. So I don't know that it's being very effective at all as far as nitrogen. So,
Well, anyways, it's a great project, and I'm glad
Yeah,
that they
it
got
is. It
funds
is.
to restore.
thank you.
So good evening. We're here tonight I have Robert Tomino, our new harbor master, and he's going to talk to you about much-needed mooring fee changes that we need to see happen now for this outgoing mooring fee season. He's also going to talk to you about some new waterways regulations we're looking to get approved by the board tonight.
Do you mind if I stand?
Sure.
I apologize. I don't think I've met all of you. I'm Bobby Tomeno. I'm the new harbor master. I've been here for about 3 months now in the full-time position, so nice to
Welcome.
meet all of you. I think I met most of you.
Congratulations. Good
Thank you
job.
very much. I love being here. It's a great job. So my memo to the town manager is kind of a two-part memo. So I'll start with the mooring fee regulations first off. And if you have any questions, we can kind of go through that, and then I'll go to the second part. I'll try to make it brief. So what we're proposing to the town is it's really just in regards to late fees for moorings. The biggest issue that we faced last year, and me coming into this role, was we were still dealing with mooring payments in August. Mooring bills are always sent out on the first of every year to all our mooring holders in town. And as you guys know, moorings are extremely important to the residents and visitors to the town. And I take them extremely seriously. So what we're proposing is that'll stay the same. They'll still be sent out, the first of the year via email. The mailed portion is really for people that still require a mail out of their mooring bill. We're trying to kind of streamline everything via electronically. That was actually done last year, but this year we're kind of trying to streamline that. The renewal payments must be received before March 15th this same calendar year. That's also on that proposal. Anything received after the 15th, so the 16th to the 31st, will be assessed a late fee of $100 in addition to their applicable mooring fee. And that invoice will be sent out via mail or email. We'll also try to make contact with them via phone as well, just to try to let them know, depending on the number, that they're late. And then any mooring not paid in full by the 31st, that'll be revoked in entirety for non-payment for the current year. Now, again, I'll try to reach out to people and kind of give them a heads up. I won't just take their mooring. I'm not just trying to take people's moorings away. That's not what I'm trying to do whatsoever. And I'll try to reach out to those people as a courtesy as well via phone to let them know, hey, we haven't gotten your mooring payment by the 31st. You want to keep the mooring or do you want to give it up? So that's kind of the gist of the mooring, the mooring regulations. I don't know if you have any questions in regards to that. And then I can go into the second part, unless you want to wait for the end for all the questions. It's up to the board.
Move on.
You can move on, thanks, yeah.
Okay. So the second part is more so for our bylaws in regards to rules of the road. Rules of the roads cover, it's basically like driving a carbon on the water. They cover vessel operations in regards to the United States Coast Guard coal regs. And those regulations cover offshore and inland bodies of water with regards to vessel operation in a safe manner. So basically what we're proposing is all vessels when operating, they must follow the rules of the road. That would be a violation of $50. This is a general violation to help my staff kind of regulate that on all of our bodies of water. The second thing is operation of a vessel in a negligent manner that would endanger any person. That violation would go up to $300 and a Massachusetts state summons. That's a big jump, but again, safety on the water is key, and that's what we're kind of looking for. There's a couple examples there in your packet in regards to negligent operation. I can go through those if you have any questions. And then the third that we're proposing is operation of a personal watercraft, which is a jet ski, with a modified exhaust system. That's also a $300 violation. So again, I can answer any of those questions in regards to that if you have any. And again, that's a little more in depth, but again, I can kind of go through that if you have any questions.
I'm just curious, what was the violation or the fee before, and what is it now? It's now $300, but what was it before, and what was the $50?
So those were never Mashpee Town bylaws. That's what we're proposing in that regard. For my staff, it's harder for my staff to write Massachusetts state summonses. I mean, I've written them before, but for my seasonal staff, it's just easier to write it on a town bylaw, and that would make it 10 times. And I'm not just about writing tickets all the time, but when you do have to write a summons, it's a lot easier to write it on a town bylaw violation. So that's what we're proposing.
Basically, there was an issue, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Bridge Academy became a little complicated, and in terms of enforcement, this enables you, empowers you to just do it much simpler, and there's no gray area.
Correct. It just carries over current CMR to the Mashpee Town bylaw, so we can.
Just being consistent.
Michaela?
You're just working for consistency with the existing laws, so you can enforce them.
Exactly what the manager said, yes.
So the seasonal people can.
Yep.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
No sense having them out there if they can't write these.
Well, we talked about this for enforcement.
That's,
I'm with you.
Just have a quick question, Bobby. Is this, these two things going to affect if we pass the bylaw?
Are you speaking about the mooring regulations, Mr.
Yes.
Taylor?
Not the mooring, the $300 fine. Does that need to go through a bylaw change or anything?
No, so this
no.
went to town meeting, and legal counsel did comment on it, that it did not require town meeting vote. It only required approval from the select board.
Okay, thank you.
that aspect, yeah.
Correct, both of these items. Yep. So I think we would just be looking for a motion to accept the new mooring fee changes and the new waterways changes.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the mooring regulation fee changes and additionally to waterways regulations, chapter 170?
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You're all set.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate meeting you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting around.
And I just, oh, you guys got to read it.
Is it you get the next one, right?
Yes.
Is it Santuit Public Outreach Events?
Yes, so basically, I wanted to come to the select board and just let you know about all of the ongoing projects that are going around for the Santuit Pond restoration. For those of you that are unaware, we currently have several grants. The DNR is currently underway in its second round of MVP funding for stormwater improvements around Santuit Pond. The first stage of funding, the consultants Fuss and O'Neill outlined 21 priority sites around the Santuit Pond watershed that are in need of improvement. They ranked from low to high priority, and in this year, we were awarded the largest of the MVP grant awards out of the state of Massachusetts to implement a stormwater at a high priority site at Lantern and Timberlane. So we're currently working on that with the DPW, and we're hoping to break ground this winter into the spring. Along with the MVP project, we have a partnership program with the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe and the Southeastern New England Partnership. This project is to draft a watershed-based plan for the Santuit Pond watershed, as well as look at inactivation treatments for Santuit Pond and the sediment within the pond. Through this project, we are also looking to implement more stormwater improvements around the pond. So the SNAP network was an additional grant outside of the MVP partnership. The third grant is the Army Corps of Engineers study for dredging. We're looking to see whether the pond can be dredged and whether it's feasible. Out of these three partnerships, we've received over $1.2 million of grant funding to restore Santuit Pond, in addition to the ongoing restoration efforts at Chopshack Bog. So what the consultants have really asked me to do is to reach out to the select board to see if we can hold a series of public hearing events at this venue. We're just not seeing the public participation that we would like at the public outreach events that we're holding on the weekends. So they would like to move forward in front of the board here. So the first series, this would be a multi-month. We would go each and every select board, if possible and approved, with a public hearing. The first would be to discuss the potential proposed motorboat restriction and amendments on the upcoming town meeting warrant. The consultants Fuss and O'Neill would like to describe to the board the importance of this article and why they feel it's the most important step into restoring Santuit Pond. The second meeting, the SNAP network would like to come to the select board along with the Mashpee Natural Resource Department to discuss the draft watershed-based plan. This plan will be submitted to Mass DEP for approval, but there is a comment period that they would like to present the draft plan to the board, as well as present the plan to the general public. They're creating a website right now, a survey, and along with a series of public outreach events that will be held outside of the select board, just so we can receive enough public comment prior to submission to DEP. This draft has been submitted to DEP and received initial feedback as a 90% score, which is really good. That's an A minus. But they wanted us to change and tweak a little bit of things and meet with the respective boards here in town to get public input and engagement. So the SNAP network is doing a lot for the town, the tribe, and to restore Santuit Pond. What this will allow the town to do is to leverage Federal Clean Water Act grant monies through the 319 non-point source control. This is a parallel process with the SNAP, and they would also like to apply for additional funding through 604B for stormwater design implementation around Santuit Pond. The third event that I'm looking to hold would have Fuss and O'Neill come to the select board to present their initial concept designs for the Santuit Pond Town Landing. We did hold a public engagement session on November 19th, and we didn't receive quite the amount of feedback as we wanted from the general public, so we wanted to bring it to the board for a public hearing with the initial concept designs to receive more input. There's also a survey that is online and active for the Santuit Pond Town Landing, just to receive input from the public, abutters, local fishing groups, or anybody who really uses and recreates on the pond. The third, and probably fifth, we might want to spread them out, is the alum dosing study and nutrient inactivation that is currently underway by TRC, formerly ESS Engineering. This was at no cost to the town to look at alum dosing and the potential feasibility of using this method for nutrient inactivation. They have initial findings of sediment core sampling and baseline monitoring data that will piggyback on the AECOM report that they would like to submit and present to the board. The DNR is also proposing, in addition to having the Army Corps of Engineers come to the select board and present their findings on the dredging feasibility study. So it would be both the alum feasibility study and dredging feasibility study, so we might want to have that as two meetings. So all these partnerships are complex, and they will need a lot of public input and support from the board moving forward. If we want to implement any of these measures, we will need to describe them fully and really educate the public what we're trying to do here. So I just wanted to let you know that this is coming. We have a lot of people working on this effort. We've actually heard initial feedback from DEP and the EPA, and they would be glad to show up here. And they're supportive of this project. There's a lot of money out there under 319, and we've received quite a bit for Santuit Pond, and it's receiving national recognition for cyanobacteria monitoring. We have a group from subcontractors from NASA who have come out and used satellite imagery and drone images, and they're calibrating their units against Raman spectroscopy, which is a method that we're looking at toxins in Santuit Pond. So it's receiving national news, and there's a lot of people out there who really want to do something for this one water body.
Good for you. Good for you. Good job.
Most cases, that's a good thing, but this
Yes.
is kind of bad. But I get it. So you're just gonna, this is what's coming to a theater near you, and we're gonna hold those hearings at the select board. This way, hopefully, we can involve more of the public.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct. We really
Okay.
need the public participation, and this is the best venue for that.
That's great.
Get everything coordinated?
I like it. Yeah, I do have
Yep.
a couple of questions. One of them is, obviously, I live closely to the Mashpee River, so it's always on my mind. I'm not much of a kayaker, my wife is. I've been in the water a few times because I was in a kayak, unfortunately. And a lot of muck in the bottom of that Mashpee River.
Yes, there is.
How's the dredging looking for Mashpee River? And as what goes along with that is the fact that where do they put the spoils? It seems to be the biggest problem that you must have to deal with. So if you could tell me if there's any speaking or talking of dredging of the Mashpee River, the bays, anything, and if so, where are we going to put the spoils? It's something that probably 10 years ago, I sat there and I think I voted on my board to have it buried in the hill beside, just off to the side of Mashpee River, and it never happened. So any input would be great.
We have had presentations from Brian House, who's come here on a number of occasions. But he's described that there would be no improvement from dredging that water body. It would be strictly navigation. The first step to removing that muck is cutting off the nitrogen source. So once you cut off the source, the natural process of decomposition will take place, and that muck will reside over time. That's your best option for the Mashpee River. That's your cheapest option. With everything going on with sewering, you're thinking, and then thinking of another potentially $300 million project for dredging the Mashpee River. Plus, that's a lot of muck, and there's not a disposal site at this current time.
There is, but you also have the wastewater treatment system discharging into the Mashpee River from the Mashpee Commons. So it's like, it just charges into a tidal stream, and if you, at some point, there's no outflow of that effluent and nitrogen, so it's all sitting there on the bottom of that river, so it's not helping anything. And as far as, I don't know how a dredge could not be effective in moving it. Is it a big job? Yes, it is. Is it costly? Yes, it is. But right now, Mashpee Commons is nice to look at, but not nice to walk in.
Well, the reduction in load will help the system.
I don't know how we're going to do that, and Mashpee Commons is still looking to expand, and that discharge pipe is right there.
We can have our talk afterwards.
Okay. Sounds good.
So,
Tom?
any other?
Just a couple of things. First, I want to congratulate the DNR for receiving multiple awards for $1.2 million for such important work. I'm also really pleased that we're going to, if we're moving forward with this, which I assume we are, that we're going to be recording these, so they're going to be available for people. And maybe we could do some kind of snippets just to have out and send out and get out to everybody. So I think doing it here and getting the support of the select board would really move you forward as far as informing the public and being able to answer questions that they might have and moving forward. So,
Absolutely.
And it fits under water quality.
Right.
Good job.
Yeah.
That presentation. Both
Thank
of
you.
Well,
Great
thank
job.
you, and happy holidays to everybody.
Same
You
to you.
too.
Thanks for waiting around.
Yep.
All right, under communications correspondence, new business, presentation, discussion of the possible approval of negotiating and entering into a retail marijuana and product manufacturing establishment host community agreement with Cat Dog LLC, DBA Sublime Cannabis, Robert Catania and Evan Lahair.
Good evening. It's nice to see you. I'm very eager and excited to make this presentation to you. I'm obviously not here as a department head this evening. I am here as Evan Lehrer, aspiring local entrepreneur. I'm joined by my business partner, colleague, Rob Catania. You should have available in your packet our business plan overview, our letter of intent requesting an appearance before you to seek a host community agreement for the stated purpose, as well as our site control authorization from our landlord, Kevin Andrade, who is the trustee of Summerfield Park at 800 Falmouth Road. I guess I'd like to share a little bit with you about our interest in the space, but maybe hand it over to Rob to introduce himself, and then really make it about a question and answer and dialogue relative to our interest in establishing a business in Mashpee. And before I do that and allow Rob to introduce himself, I do want to disclose that I have, given my professional capacity working with the town, had to file disclosures of conflict of interest to my appointing authority, which is Town Manager Collins, and the requisite paperwork has been filed. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Robert Catania. I think most of you already know me. I've been before this board a number of times in the past. You know me from Wicked Restaurant. I've been operating for almost 15 years in the town of Mashpee. This is my second time before the board trying to get a retail cannabis license, so I'm hoping for a different turn of events tonight than last time, although I did get one vote last time. Basically, we put together a really good business plan. I'm very confident in it. We've had a few years under our belt now. You've all seen Triple M operate. We've seen, from what I understand, very little impact on the town, or parking concerns, or traffic, or theft, or a lot of the concerns I think that came up initially being in the first cannabis business, I think have been alleviated from my observations. I would defer to.
Agreed.
I think since I was involved professionally at the outset of the state regulations when the town was considering how to proceed with retail cannabis. And since that time that Triple M's been operating, there have been relatively substantial amendments to the statewide cannabis regulatory landscape, notably with how host community agreements are negotiated. So I've alluded to some of that in my letter of intent. But ultimately, over the past few years, the towns could expect a local option sales tax of up to 3% of gross sales, as well as up to 3% community impact fee. That community impact fee is intended, and always has been intended, to be directly related to costs incurred by the town as a direct result of the operation of the facility. So we are certainly amenable to a host community agreement, whereas a 3% community impact fee is contemplated. However, I do want to make clear that the state has amended their regulations, whereas it is incumbent upon the town in all future agreements that they execute for cannabis establishments to demonstrate to the state the substantive impacts and costs that they've incurred related to the operation of that facility, and then to demonstrate to the state invoicing to substantiate those impacts. So it is the town's responsibility to provide documentation to the state to receive those reimbursements. We anticipate operating, again, at 800 Falmouth Road, a high-quality, designed customer service experience that we think Cape Cod is currently lacking in the cannabis space. Something that elevates the user experience to something that they may not be conventionally used to, either as an experienced or inexperienced cannabis user. We think there's a gap in the marketplace and that we can do it better. And ultimately, we'd like to, I certainly personally would like to continue my relationship with the town, which is both I'm professionally invested, personally invested, but I'd also like to be financially invested in the town. to not only better myself, but provide long-term for my family.
And for the town.
And for the town. So with that, I mean, that's really the scope of the presentation. We really wanted to, make clear to you that we intend on being long-term, trustworthy partners in the community, civically engaged, hire within, train locally, and elevate this business to something that's prominent and an example, a best practice that could be something the town could certainly be proud of.
As you can see, my family and I have extensive background, over 40 years in hospitality industry, from hotels to restaurants, gift shops, spas. I've opened a lot of businesses, so, in terms of just making it go legit and as it should, I'm very comfortable with that. Controlling alcohol as a controlled substance, I've done my whole life, and cash management. And the state is so regulated on the cannabis industry compared to alcohol. When you consider how dangerous alcohol actually can be in overuse, the regulations from the Cannabis Control Commission are so strict that it takes a lot of load off the town, to be honest with you, because the hoops we have to jump through to get state approval is just, it's unbelievable. The good news is the CCC has speeded up the process from the last time around. It was at 12 to 14 months a while back. The CCC on their website is now saying that within 90 days of acceptance of our application, meaning there's a little back and forth with the application process with the state. I've been through it before with the manufacturing previously, and they're at 90 days now. They're saying they can return an answer within 90 days for a provisional license, and that's when we, really move forward to get ready for the inspection phase with the state. So we could possibly be open next summer if we could get approval tonight on this. And I think our package is very comprehensive. I think if you've had time to read it, it's very comprehensive. It answers most of the questions that I think could come up. But if you have any more, we're surely here to answer them.
I think I would just like to point out, for the people watching at home, perhaps, we've had one retail operation in town. There was one license available since the town moved and adopted regulations that allowed the adult use cannabis in Mashpee. We have a ratio. There's a relationship in the zoning that is essentially limits the number of retail licenses to 20% of the number of package store licenses in the town. The town has since issued a 10th package store license, triggering the availability of this particular license, which is why we are making the presentation to you. So I wanted to make that caveat particularly clear.
And I just want to point out that Rob contacted me for the purposes of inquiring about that. I checked with the administrative assistant and then relayed the information to him. So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I approached the town for sure and appreciated the manager's cooperation in helping us get to a clear answer from town council, which he did.
So 800 Falmouth Road, that's the industrial park?
Yes.
Correct, that's the beginning of the industrial park.
Correct.
Deerfield Park.
Summerfield Park.
Summerfield Park, I'm sorry.
Yep. One of my questions is, I don't really have many problems with it personally, but I do question us only having 3 members of the board here today. Having, our next meeting is what, the 9th, correct?
January 9th.
I don't know what the rest of the board feels, if you have questions, or if you, my comfort level, if we had 5 members of the board for consideration for, rather than just 3. I don't think it's just like the last continuance, if you will, or carryover. I think this is another important one. But, do you have any thoughts? Kayla?
With regard to tabling until January 9th?
Yeah, if you have any questions and/or your thought on,
I have
your comfort.
I don't want to speak for them, but I think the reason why they wanted to come in here tonight is because of the timeline in getting it ready for next summer. Is that not correct?
We are on a tight timeline, and we are trying to get this for next summer. And, I know there's personal situations why some people are out tonight, and, they could be out again the next meeting. And, I've been through this before with the delays, and caused great financial burden to me last time with the delay. I know it doesn't sound like much, but with consultants and lawyers and the timing and everything, it really does have a financial impact on us. And, you know, we see this as a win-win for the town. There's no risk to the town. It's literally just income for the town. And some of our previous agenda items does sound like the town could use the sales tax.
And then, again, if we were to vote on something tonight, it would be to authorize you, correct? The town manager to enter into a final contract
Exactly,
negotiation.
yes.
So if we were to authorize you, would that be completed before our next meeting?
I would assume so, but, you know, if you did take a vote, and then, let's say, and I'm not telling you where you're going to vote, I don't know way you're going to vote. But hypothetically, if it was a 3-0 vote, with all due respect to the members who are absent, it wouldn't change.
Agreed. That's,
If any of you members have reservations, I think I could certainly understand that you may want to table it under those circumstances. If you don't have any reservations, then maybe a vote tonight would speed along the process, because I do know that we said, what, 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 weeks. When you
there's also
would convene, yeah.
vacationing, vacation schedules and
Yeah.
that.
I'm sorry, I think you had a question. I didn't want to cut you off.
Go ahead, Michaela.
No, I was just, I just had a couple of.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
think easy-to-answer questions. So, did you say that council agreed that there is a license that can move forward? Okay, because I didn't know if you had to be, I'm just reading the language, you had to be fewer than 20%, but that answers that. The other one, what special permit would you need from the ZBA? And just, you can educate me.
Sure. Any marijuana establishment in the town of Mashpee is required to seek a special permit from the regulatory authority, which in this case would be the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yep.
There is legal potential for the special permit that was actually issued to Rob's first cannabis facility, which was a product manufacturing facility in the same condominium. I am not completely familiar with the language of that permit, so I'm not sure if the rights to operate any cannabis use are entitled in that entire development. So for the purposes of conservatism, I decided to include the likelihood we would need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for that special permit.
It's possible, we're covered already, we're not positive yet, is what he's saying.
Exactly.
This is really clear and comprehensive. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I read this over the weekend too, so, you know, I don't have any, you know, hesitation, and I guess if we had and if we move forward today, and if, like you said, if we had 3 votes, then it would move forward. If we had 2, I guess we only need 2 for a majority to move forward with tonight.
Right, it's not.
And that would authorize, so if we'd like to have do I hear a motion to authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter an agreement, correct? With, I want to.
Cat Dog LLC.
Cat Dog LLC.
So moved.
All right, I have a second. Any discussion?
This is
No.
comprehensive.
I'm good.
Tom, yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. I really appreciate your taking this up tonight. It really helps us out a lot to get it going tonight.
Congratulations,
appreciate
and
it.
good luck
I'll
with
be in touch
rallying.
with you tomorrow.
Yes.
His time schedule is.
Thank you both. My kids don't watch every meeting I present to because there's so many, but they watch tonight, so thank you very much.
Hi, kids.
Congratulations.
Dad did great.
Dad's doing a good job.
Discussion and approval of the letter to Sandwich Board of Selectmen with regard to the NSG Village Green 1 project. So,
Really, it touches on everything that was discussed. It
Yeah.
touches on everything in Chairman Hochter's letter, the concerns that he expressed environmentally. Those are all, I think, covered here.
I was
One-
just, yeah, those are drafts.
Yeah, but it does, it touches on everything. I'm wondering if, I don't have the other letter in front of me, the other letter written by the Mashpee Select Boardman concludes by saying that he's moving it forward with the unanimous approval of the board. So I'm wondering if that should or could be in here.
We can amend, revise, delete anything you'd like,
We were amending?
because this is just a draft.
Yep, I think it covers everything.
yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with the draft, so I mean, what do we need from us tonight? Do we,
If you want to vote to approve the draft, then we may actually have the vice chair sign it, because unless you want to wait until the chair returns, and then we'll have him sign it. But it all depends on how quickly you want this out.
yeah, I mean, this project's probably gonna be,
I think it's important to move.
you think you wanna move forward quicker? I mean, I'm wondering if it sounds like this project is still gonna be tied up for quite a while, and the 9th is not gonna be, but I'll go with whatever the board feels.
I agree. This isn't as time-sensitive as maybe some of the other
Yeah.
issues. But it's whatever
Again,
you
I'll-
want.
And I'm fine. I don't have a problem with waiting till then either.
I mean,
I
there's
think
a
it's-
lot of red tape, I mean, since this has been bubbling over, and there's a lot
Way
of,
to go.
huh?
There's a long way to go on this.
Yeah,
So-
there is.
So why don't we bring the draft back on the 9th? So-
Yeah, I mean, this way, and then it
Fine with
can
that.
be by the entire board, and, rather than-
That's good to have in there. So
yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Rather than just 3
Because,
members of the board.
One of the other members may have a sentence that they want to
Yeah.
add, or,
Yep.
or delete.
Yep.
But then it can be
point.
potentially from the entire board, it's not just
Yep.
3 members.
I think that's important.
Yeah, consensus.
Yeah.
So we'll bring it back on the 9th.
Sounds good.
Yes, please.
But all in all, it looks really good.
How we looking? We're good? We have a long agenda to go.
Next
With
page.
that being said,
Second page, Tom.
Oh, you got more going, Tom. You can get to the second page.
Liaison reports? Not hearing any. Okay. Water quality updates, I think we already got that with Santua Pond. And
You've received everything on the town
Right.
end. I don't know if there's any questions.
town manager updates.
The only thing I just want to remind the board that you've already approved is the closing on, what, Wednesday? Wednesday. And we've got it posted everywhere for the organizational day.
Okay. Executive session. Motion to enter into executive session. I move that the board convene the executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy regarding negotiations with non-union personnel relative to the personnel administration plan with the following collective bargaining units, which on an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town.
so moved.
Second.
From which,
Yeah,
from which the board will reconvene in
reconvene.
open session.
that's important.
I don't know if you have to read these, but you're discussing.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Unanimous.
You're on.
Okay, welcome back. I'd like to have a motion to authorize the town manager and execute and ratify the Mashpee Permanent Firefighters Association, International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, Local 2519.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous. Also, would like to authorize the town manager to execute and ratify the contract with Mass COP Local 320, Unit B Sergeants.
324.
Look,
Says 320.
Yeah, it is 324. It's a typo.
okay, no problem. With the Mass COP Local 324, Unit B Sergeants.
So moved.
Second.
And that's to execute and ratify. First and second, any discussion? Not hearing any. Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
Kayla? Yes. And I'm a yes. Unanimous. Motion to close?
Adjourn.
Second.
Here, here. Good night, everybody.